The headlights cut through the misty backroad forest, casting long beams on trees that swayed in silence. Daniel gripped the wheel tighter as Sarah whispered, "Something just moved out there." A shadow darted across the road, too fast for his eyes to follow. Michael leaned forward, his breath fogging the glass, saying, "That was no deer." Emily clutched her small backpack, trembling, sensing what the others denied. Then the screech tore through the night, metallic and wrong, echoing above them. Daniel muttered, "We shouldn't be here," his voice breaking. Sarah's eyes widened as branches snapped nearby. A figure stood just beyond the tree line, tall, hunched, wings unfurling. The road was no longer safe. The forest seemed alive, watching, waiting. Silence fell again, so heavy it pressed against their chests, leaving only the sound of their quickening hearts. The car jolted forward as Daniel pressed the gas, tires squealing on wet asphalt. Sarah cried, "Don't stop, just drive." Michael twisted to look back, breath ragged. Emily whispered, "It followed us," her voice small but heavy. The forest blurred past, endless black streaks between flashes of light. The screech echoed again, closer this time, making the glass tremble. Daniel's knuckles burned white against the wheel. His voice cracked as he said, "No one will believe this." Sarah's sobs filled the cabin, broken and raw. Michael muttered, "It's hunting us," and the word clung like a curse. The road twisted, shadows moved, and for a moment Daniel swore the trees leaned in. The headlights struggled against the dark, and all of them knew there was no outrunning what watched from above. When the car finally slowed at a clearing, silence pressed heavy. Michael stepped out, fists clenched, and hissed, "That was nothing but nerves." Sarah snapped, "You saw it too." Daniel leaned against the hood, eyes darting, whispering, "It wanted us to see." Emily sat on the bumper, knees pulled up, whispering. Its eyes glowed red. Michael paced angrily, kicking gravel, refusing to admit fear. Sarah's voice broke as she said, "Stop pretending." Daniel turned sharply toward the trees, swearing he heard wings folding in the dark. The forest gave no answer, only the whistle of cold night air through branches. Doubt and fear warred in silence as each refused to say what they all felt. They were still being watched. Daniel froze mid-breath as Sarah gasped. Just beyond the car, a tree trunk bore fresh gouges, deep and claw-like, sap glistening. Emily whispered, "It marked us." Michael muttered, "Just an animal," though his voice faltered. Daniel brushed his fingers along the grooves, his skin trembling. The claw marks stretched too high, far above human reach. Sarah whispered, "It's following us," and her words hung heavy in the mist. Emily tugged her backpack closer, whispering prayers. The night pressed in with unnatural silence, as if even crickets refused to sing. Daniel stepped back, the realization pounding in his chest. They weren't escaping. They were already chosen. They sat in the car, silence pressing like a weight. Daniel stared blankly at the wheel, whispering, "This isn't the first time it's happened." Sarah turned sharply. "What do you mean?" Michael's jaw tightened, muttering, "Don't start with stories." Emily's small voice broke the air. "Grandpa told me about the thing in the woods." Daniel's eyes darkened, and he said, he wasn't lying. The words cracked the fragile hope they clung to. Sarah shook her head, whispering, "We can't tell anyone." The forest outside swayed like it listened. The shadows deepened, pressing closer against the glass. Fear rooted them to their seats, knowing the truth wasn't beginning, it was returning. Daniel sat on the hood, eyes locked on the tree line as Sarah whispered, "You can't keep running from it." He didn't answer, but his trembling hands betrayed him. Michael scoffed, muttering, "You're all letting fear drive this." Emily looked up, her voice soft but steady. "Grandpa used to tell stories of people who vanished." Daniel's chest tightened. He whispered, "My brother disappeared here 10 years ago." Silence followed like a blade. Sarah's hand rested on his arm, a desperate anchor against the dread. Michael shook his head, unwilling to accept what weighed on them. The night seemed to lean closer, carrying old grief like it was never buried, only waiting. The silence fractured as Michael snapped, "You're letting superstition poison reason." Sarah flinched, fire in her eyes as she said, "Then explain what you saw." Daniel whispered, "He refuses because it's easier than truth." Michael turned sharply, his face rigid with anger. Emily shivered, her voice small. "It's still out there." Michael's denial was a shield, but cracks showed in his clenched jaw. Sarah's tears welled, frustration rising. Daniel's haunted gaze never left the trees, as if memory itself stared back at him. The tension bound them tighter than the dark, each word louder than the whispering woods. Emily's voice trembled, but she spoke anyway. "It has red eyes. I saw them watching from the trees." Sarah froze, breath shallow, whispering, "When?" Emily pointed into the dark, her fingers shaking. Daniel stiffened, memories clawing at him. Michael barked, "She's imagining things." His words cracked against the silence, too loud. Emily clutched her backpack tighter, whispering, "It whispered my name." The forest stirred with cold wind, answering with unsettling timing. Sarah's tears slid down her cheek as Daniel stepped closer to his niece, whispering, "You're not lying." The child's truth tore through their fragile hope, binding fear with certainty. From deeper in the woods, an old voice carried. A frail man emerged with a lantern, his face carved with years. Sarah whispered, "Who is that?" Daniel muttered, "The old ranger." The keeper of stories stepped close, eyes heavy with secrets. His voice rasped, "You've seen it, haven't you?" Silence met his question. Emily nodded, whispering, "It spoke to me." Michael scoffed. But the elder's stare silenced him. "It has taken before," the man warned, "and it always comes back." The lantern flickered as if the forest itself responded. Fear deepened, not from what they saw, but from what he knew. The group circled the old man, fear binding them. Daniel asked, "Why us?" The keeper's voice cracked, "It doesn't choose, it returns." Sarah shook her head, whispering, "We can't survive this." Michael muttered, "There's always an explanation," but his voice lacked conviction. Emily clutched her backpack, whispering, "It likes the dark." Daniel's heart pounded as the elder warned, "It hunts the broken, those with scars the forest remembers." Silence stretched as shadows deepened. Sarah squeezed Daniel's arm, trembling. The keeper's eyes gleamed with sorrow. "You can't run from it," he said. "You can only endure." The words carved terror deeper than sight ever could. The clearing stretched silent, until Daniel spotted tracks pressed into the damp earth. His voice cracked, "These aren't animal prints." Sarah crouched, whispering, "They're too wide." Michael shook his head but stepped back unconsciously. Emily knelt near the marks, her small hand hovering above one. She whispered, "It's still close." The keeper lifted his lantern, muttering, "It walks when others sleep." The wind bent branches, carrying distant echoes. Daniel's chest tightened, each breath shorter, his memory a wound reopened. Sarah glanced at him, eyes pleading. Michael muttered, "This is madness," but his shaking betrayed him. The earth itself felt cursed, stained by steps not human. Daniel refused to leave the prints, whispering, "This proves it." Michael growled, "It proves nothing but fear." Sarah's voice cracked, "We can't keep ignoring what's in front of us." Emily clutched her backpack, whispering, "It's watching." Daniel's obsession burned through his words. "I won't lose anyone else." Michael's fists clenched, his denial louder than reason. The keeper muttered, "The more you search, the closer it comes." Silence fell, broken by a distant snap of branches. Sarah pulled Daniel back, her fear raw. The forest didn't argue. It confirmed what they already knew. There was no safe place. The keeper's voice cracked the silence. "Long ago hunters vanished here, their screams echoing through the trees." Sarah whispered, "Why didn't anyone tell us?" He shook his head, eyes heavy with sorrow. "Because truth kills faster than lies." Daniel's breath caught, his gaze locked on the elder. Emily whispered, "It wants us." Michael snapped, Enough of this folklore. Though his voice lacked its usual strength, the keeper's lantern flickered, shadows bending unnaturally. You opened the path by seeing it, he warned. Daniel's heart pounded as if the forest beat in rhythm with his own dread. The forest shifted as if it listened. Trees creaked louder than wind should allow. Daniel whispered, "It's circling us." Sarah clutched his arm, trembling. Emily buried her face in her backpack, whispering, "It's closer." Michael's gaze darted, nerves fraying. The keeper raised his lantern, voice hollow. "This is how it begins." The shadows stretched unnaturally, longer than their bodies, bending in wrong directions. Sarah's tears slipped as she said, "We can't fight this." Daniel's jaw clenched, his voice low, "Then we endure." The forest groaned as though alive, pressing in tighter with every breath. The doomed companion, Ethan, stepped from the shadows, panting. "I heard the scream too." Daniel's eyes widened. "You followed us?" Ethan nodded, his face pale but resolute. Sarah cried, "You shouldn't be here." Michael muttered, "Another fool dragged into madness." Ethan's voice shook, "I couldn't leave you." Emily whispered, "It won't let him go." The keeper sighed, "He's already marked." Ethan's eyes darted toward the tree line as the sound of branches snapping thundered closer. Daniel whispered, "Stay close." But the forest didn't welcome him. It swallowed him with its silence, sealing his fate before it even began. Daniel brushed dirt from the ground and uncovered a weathered leather journal. His chest tightened as he whispered, "It's my brother's." Sarah gasped. "Here?" Emily leaned closer, eyes wide. Michael muttered, "Just coincidence," though his voice faltered. Daniel flipped brittle pages, revealing sketches of a winged figure and frantic notes. The words blurred through his tears. "He knew," Daniel whispered. The keeper sighed. It stalked his bloodline. Emily clutched Daniel's arm, whispering, "It wants you." Sarah's face paled, the truth crushing her. Michael stepped back, fear cracking his denial. The forest seemed to breathe with them, feeding on revelation. The journal's final entry read, "If it takes me, it will take him too." Daniel's voice cracked as he whispered, "He wrote about me." Sarah's tears fell, her voice trembling. "It shows your family." Emily hid her face against Daniel's chest. Michael muttered, "This is madness," though his eyes betrayed terror. The keeper's voice shook, "Blood ties bind its hunger. It returns to finish what it started." Daniel clenched the book, rage cutting through fear. "Then it ends with me." The words carried into the mist, daring the forest. The shadows bent closer, listening to his vow. Michael's eyes shifted nervously, his voice low. "You think I don't know? I've seen it before." Daniel froze, rage in his stare. Sarah whispered, "You lied to us?" Emily's breath caught, whispering, "Why?" Michael's jaw tightened. "Because knowing won't save you," he said, voice sharp. Daniel stepped forward, fury boiling. The keeper muttered, "The betrayer reveals himself when fear grows." Michael's denial cracked, his trembling hand brushing a hidden charm in his pocket. Sarah screamed, "You put us in danger." Silence cut deep, broken only by the wind carrying the forest's mocking whispers. Emily's voice pierced the chaos, fragile but steady. "It came to me in a dream. It said, 'You can't leave.'" Daniel pulled her close, whispering, "It can't touch you." Sarah's tears streamed, fear unraveling her. Michael stood silent, guilt etched across his face. The keeper's voice rasped, "The young hear its truth first." Emily stared past them into the tree line, her face pale. "It's waiting." Her words froze them all. The trees groaned, as if agreeing. The weight of innocence revealed what denial could not. The creature's intent was not blind, but deliberate. A sudden scream tore through the night. Ethan bolted toward the sound, ignoring Daniel's cry, "Wait!" Branches snapped violently as the noise cut off. Sarah sobbed, "He's gone." Emily trembled, whispering, "The forest took him." Michael stared blankly, denial shattered. The keeper shook his head, whispering, The doomed companion always falls. Daniel's fists shook with rage. "Not again!" he roared, voice echoing. The silence after was heavier than sound, pressing against their chests. Sarah clung to Daniel, sobbing. Emily's small voice quivered. "We can't fight it." And for the first time, no one argued. The lantern's flame sputtered as a shriek split the air closer than ever. Daniel shouted, "There's no denying it now." Sarah's sobs broke, her body shaking as she clung to him. Michael's jaw quivered, silence replacing his arguments. Emily whispered, "It's here," her voice hollow. The keeper raised his lantern, its glow flickering against their pale faces. Branches snapped all around, unseen claws dragging along bark. Daniel's voice cracked, "We end this tonight." His words echoed in defiance, yet trembled with fear. The forest pulsed, as if it breathed, and the group realized escape was no longer an option. The forest erupted with crashing branches. Daniel yelled, "Run!" They sprinted, fog tearing at their legs. Sarah stumbled, but Daniel caught her arm, dragging her forward. Michael's breath came ragged, his fear finally real. Emily clung to her backpack, tears streaking her face as she gasped, "It's chasing us." The keeper limped, lantern swinging wildly, shadows bending in every direction. Behind them, a massive form darted between trees, wings slicing through the mist. The screech tore the night again, rattling their bones. Sarah screamed, "It's on us!" Daniel gritted his teeth, forcing them onward into the endless dark. The group burst into a clearing. Ethan's scream echoed again, cut short by a sickening snap. Daniel froze, fury in his eyes. It took him. Sarah sobbed uncontrollably, collapsing to her knees. Emily's whisper barely escaped, "He's gone." Michael stared blankly, horror draining the color from his face. The keeper's voice cracked, "The doomed companion always seals the path." Daniel's fists clenched, rage boiling over. "No more deaths," he growled. Sarah begged, "We can't stop it." Daniel ignored her, his grief turning to fire. The forest stood still, heavy, as though mourning with them, then waiting for its next victim. A towering figure emerged at the edge of the clearing. Wings spread wide, blocking the moonlight, eyes glowing red through the fog. Sarah gasped, choking on her scream. Emily buried her face into Daniel's side, whispering, "It found us." Michael's knees buckled, muttering incoherent prayers. The keeper stood firm, lantern raised, though his hand trembled. Daniel gripped a broken branch, his breath sharp, his voice raw. "We face it now." The creature's screech tore through the air, vibrating their bones. Its shadow fell over them, heavy and merciless, and the truth was clear. They were prey beneath its gaze. Daniel charged forward, screaming, "You won't take another." His branch splintered against the creature's arm, sparks of force shattering through him. Sarah cried, "No!" Emily screamed his name, her voice breaking. Michael scrambled back, horror painted on his face. The keeper whispered a prayer, lantern shaking. The cryptid roared, wings beating with hurricane force, knocking them to the ground. Daniel rose again, blood dripping from his lip, defiant despite trembling legs. "If it ends here," he growled, "it ends with me." The creature's shadow fell across him, claws raised, the night itself holding its breath. The clearing was silent after the storm of wings. Daniel lay on the ground, chest heaving, gripping dirt with bloody hands. Sarah crawled to him, sobbing, "Don't move." Emily knelt beside them, whispering, "Is it gone?" Michael stood frozen, staring at the tree line as if waiting for the shadow to return. The keeper lowered his lantern, voice trembling, its spares only to remind. Daniel's eyes flickered open, his whisper raw, "We're still alive." Sarah kissed his forehead, tears falling freely. But the silence carried no comfort. It pressed heavy, hollow, leaving them unsure if survival was victory or punishment. By dawn, flashing lights filled the clearing. Authorities swarmed, radios crackling, boots crushing the earth. Daniel muttered finally. Sarah stepped back, shielding Emily. Michael sighed with relief, whispering, "It's over." But the keeper shook his head. An officer scoffed at clawed trees, saying, "Bears." Daniel's voice rose, furious. That was no bear. The captain silenced him, ordering, "No reports of monsters tonight." Sarah gripped Daniel's hand, trembling. Emily whispered, "They don't believe us." The denial cut deeper than claws. The truth vanished under paperwork, swallowed by men who refused to see. When questioned, Michael's words faltered. I didn't see it." Daniel's head snapped, fury burning. "You coward." Sarah gasped, "Why are you lying?" Emily whispered, "He's betraying us." Michael's voice cracked, "They'll lock us away if we tell them." The keeper spat, "Your silence feeds it." Daniel lunged, but Sarah pulled him back. Michael's guilt weighed heavy, his trembling hands buried in his pockets. Daniel hissed, "Your betrayal will kill more." Michael turned away, ashamed but unbroken. The forest loomed in silence, listening, its hunger fed by denial. The keeper approached Daniel, voice low. "It won't stop. What you fought was only its shadow." Daniel's jaw clenched, his grip tightening around the bloodstained journal. Sarah whispered, "You mean it will return?" Emily looked up, her voice shaking. "It never left." The keeper's eyes burned with weary certainty. "Generations have tried to fight. None have won. You carry its mark now." Michael muttered, "Then we're doomed." Daniel shook his head, his voice steady, "We endure." The elder sighed. "Endurance is survival, not victory." The forest stirred faintly, as if agreeing with every word. Night returned with a crushing stillness. Daniel sat alone by the car, staring at the journal. Sarah joined him, whispering, "We'll never be free." Emily slept in the back seat, clutching her backpack even in dreams. Michael kept his distance, his guilt isolating him. The keeper's voice carried faintly, "You now know what others refuse." Daniel closed his eyes, whispering, "It's not over." The wind sighed through branches, carrying the faint echo of wings. Sarah pressed her head against his shoulder. The night swallowed them whole, not with violence, but with the certainty that silence was the heaviest curse of all. Morning light broke through the trees, soft and golden, yet it carried no warmth. Daniel leaned against the car, exhausted, whispering, "It's over." Sarah forced a smile, her hands trembling as she tucked Emily's hair behind her ear. Michael lit a cigarette, trying to mask his shaking hands. The keeper stood apart, eyes fixed on the tree line. Emily blinked awake, yawning softly. "We can go home now." Daniel nodded, though the lie weighed heavy on his tongue. The forest swayed gently, its silence deeper than morning bird song, as if watching them leave with mocking patience. They drove along the cracked road, headlights dim in daylight. Sarah whispered, "It feels wrong to leave." Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. Michael muttered, "We survived. That's all that matters." Emily pressed her face to the window, her small voice fragile. "The trees are moving." Daniel's breath caught, but he stayed silent. Sarah's hand slid onto his arm, grounding him. The keeper's lantern rested dim in his lap, his gaze unblinking. Behind them the forest receded, but its presence lingered, clinging like smoke. The silence inside the car was louder than any scream they'd heard. As they neared town, Emily hummed softly, a strange, low tune. Sarah froze, whispering, "Where did you learn that?" Emily shrugged, her eyes glassy. Daniel's grip tightened on the wheel, his voice raw. "Don't hum that again." Michael leaned forward, uneasy that sound. "It was in the woods." The keeper closed his eyes, murmuring, "It already touched her." Sarah's tears brimmed, panic sharp in her chest. Emily smiled faintly, unaware of the fear she stirred. The hum lingered, weaving through the silence, an echo of something not human yet carried in a child's fragile breath. They stopped at the edge of town, where the forest ended. Daniel stepped out, breathing heavy, clutching the journal. Sarah whispered, "It's behind us now." The keeper shook his head, his voice brittle. "The forest doesn't stay behind, it follows." Michael kicked gravel, muttering curses though fear hollowed his eyes. Emily climbed out slowly, holding her backpack. She whispered, "It's still watching me." Daniel dropped his gaze, unable to promise her safety. The air around them was too still, unnatural for dawn. The truth pressed against their skin. Survival meant living with the shadow, not escaping it. That night, Daniel sat alone, the journal open before him. Sarah and Emily slept nearby, their breaths soft but restless. Michael paced the room, unable to settle. The keeper's lantern flickered faintly in the corner. Outside, the wind carried a sound, soft, deliberate wing beats above the roof. Daniel's blood ran cold. A low screech rolled through the night, too close, vibrating the walls. Emily stirred in her sleep, whispering, "It's here." Daniel's hand shook as he closed the journal. Silence followed, heavier than death, until the final sound cut through, the hollow echo of talons scraping across the roof.